to talk to you today about micro-credentials and the digital transformation of education. And I'll be using my slides today, and they are certainly been approved by others, such as Don Alcott and Kirk Paris, who are colleagues of mine. Micro-credentials are becoming more in the vogue internationally, and so at the Smart Global Education Conference, I think it's only natural that we would want to be speaking about them today. All my slides that you see today are openly available and are under a Creative Commons license, but some of the images are being used today under fair dealing or fair use regulations. Certainly since the COVID-19 coronavirus, there's been some immense, enormous, and life-changing changes in higher education and in public education. And the pivot towards online learning has now become irreversible. And the staggering impact on global education is known by this slide, where more than 1.3 billion schools have been closed because of COVID. And many have those that have the possibility have, of course, continued using online learning. This is an emerging phenomena where we've reached a crucial time in the history of education where we're looking at three different trends that seem to be working together. The pivot towards online learning, the need for open educational resources, and the appearance of micro-credentials. So this is what we might refer to as a pivot, where we change towards online learning, towards OER, towards micro-credentials, but also that we don't just pivot that direction, we move in that direction. So I think that that's an important concept for us to understand. And the idea of distance education has been, in our Western terms, a Cinderella, and online learning has turned out to become like a princess. So where people in the past were speaking to us about people in the past were speaking to us about the dangers of distance education, and now they are referring to online learning as being very suitable for education, whereas in the past they were criticizing it. Now, open educational resources, many have seen them as just being textbooks that are freely available at no cost to students. But they are not just textbooks. They can be educational games, they can be videos, they can be podcasts, they can be curriculum material. The key point about open educational resources is that they are openly licensed and available for use by everybody, anywhere. Now, micro-credentials are, as the word implies, they're small units of credit where they bring in learning, reflection, practice, and then the student or learner shows mastery, and then they get the credential, the micro-credential, to display. And so that's the basic idea behind micro-credentials. So what are they? They're proof of achievement of a skill or knowledge. Outcomes have been produced that you learned something and you can show competency. The standards are transparent, the standards for assessment, and the assessments are validated. The key difference between micro-credentials and regular credentials is the short duration. They're narrow in scope and they're for educational or training activities. Others refer to them as alternative digital credentials, badges. There's mini degrees, nano degrees, micro certificates. These terms have all been used to describe the phenomenon that we refer to as micro-credentials. So, some of the aspects of micro-credentials are listed here. They're modular, they're stackable, they're portable, they're digital, and they're universal. So by modular, it means you can take different micro-credentials and put them together to create lessons. By stackable, we mean we can take the credential you get, add another micro-credential and another until you get a full diploma or a degree. Portable means that they can be taken anywhere and used anywhere. They're online and fully digital and universal, so they're on the internet and anyone can use them. Inside them, there's data and it's evidence-based. They're free and open. They're stackable and they're transferable. And free and open does not necessarily mean that they're free of cost, because some institutions, in fact many, are charging for them, but they're freely available on the internet, but you have to pay. Myself as an Open Education Resource Chair, support the free of cost as well. Now the first micro-credential we can refer to was in Canada, the earliest at least that we can find, and I'd say China's a very old civilization. You'll probably be able to find an equivalent at an earlier date. But in Canada it was 1833 with St. John Ambulance, where they gave micro-credentials out for people who learn specific skills for nursing or paraprofessional medical people. So, what is the most common micro-credential? And here we can show many different types. They're all over the map. You can get them for skills, you can get them for knowledge, you can get them for training. But the most common micro-credential would be your driver's license. It's been used for many years, and it just shows that you have completed a test of your skills and skills of driving and knowledge of the laws of the road. And that's one of the most common micro-credentials. Now, MOOCs, the massive open online courses, they transfer directly into graduate degrees. In many cases, perhaps in most cases, they can be stackable and they can be transferable as micro-credentials. So, micro-credentials are for credit. The word credential means they're for credit. If not, they are not micro-credentials. However, or are micro-credentials for credit equivalency, which is quite different, where you may not get credit, but you may be able to take your micro-credential to an institution, and they will grant you an equivalent credit. And that makes them convertible. And they can be stackable, and this is a model for the future where we have stackable credential pathways, where learners gain competencies, they take courses or modules, they get badges recognizing them, they get so many badges, these badges lead to a certificate, and you get different certificates which lead to a degree. So behind micro-credentials is the possibility for learners to develop their own personal pathways to formal credentials like certificates and degrees. So why engage with micro-credentials? How involved should institutions be? Could this provide a new revenue stream for institutions? Could it be a recruitment strategy? Or are we looking at a new business model to earn funding using micro-credentials? Well, we have to rethink credentials of why we are doing this. Well, employers want qualified workers. The students want more job opportunities. Employees want advancement or promotion. And government wants economic balance, where they have populations where there's a huge demand for certain skills and knowledge, and the population does not have those skills and knowledge. So they want to balance the economy by helping workers get micro-credentials so as they can participate in the economy. And why micro-credentials now? The estimate is that 50% of all employees will need reskilling by 2025. This is from the World Economic Forum. We need to provide short time frame opportunities for upskilling and reskilling, and strategies for development of knowledge skills across the workforce. Yes, there's a growing need for a continually educated workforce. You train for something and that becomes obsolete, and then another one starts up, you train for that, that becomes obsolete. The world of technology is changing so fast that we need to continuously train our workforce. And Harold Yarkey puts it this way: work is equal to learning, learning is equal to work, saying that it's a major business mistake when learning is not connected to working. So the micro-credentials, we need roadmaps to credit, and the leaders so far are in Australia with the Australia Qualifications Framework, New Zealand Qualifications Authority. In Europe, you have the European Qualifications Framework and also the European MOOC Consortium. So they are among the leading organizations in the world supporting micro-credentials that can lead to further higher credentials by being stackable. So here are some sites that offer micro-credentials at the moment: Open Badges, EDUCAUSE, edX, Udacity, DaVinci, Coders, General Assembly. So there's quite a few of them out there already offering micro-credentials. In our province in Canada, Alberta, Alberta government has quick impact training for immediate workplace applications. They've given a $5 million provincial program for the development of micro-credentials for business. That is for skills and knowledge that has been identified as in need by business, that we have a shortage of these skills. And Power Ed, the offshoot from Athabasca University, is a leader in Alberta in providing these micro-credentials. The ICDE, the International Council for Distance Education, has created a working group on the present and future of alternative digital credentials. They say that it's imperative before traditional institutions encroach on open university territory. So they're putting out to open universities, these are the world's distance education universities, that micro-credentials are becoming essential. For certification, transcripts, present systems are cumbersome and inefficient. You send away to your university and you tell them to send the paper credential to an employer or to another evaluator, and they go and print it out and send it by mail. There's an inability to provide this. This is not good enough in a modern digital economy. And the inability to provide a certificate is a serious problem. So digital systems can help. Dee Planko calls this the death knell for the embossed transcript. Certification and transcripts are going digital. Micro-credentials, the affordances are listed here. They're personalization, skills recognition, access to formal credentials, flexible just-in-time training, and upskilling. Some of the barriers, however, to micro-credentials are listed here. The lack of usable data and surveys. We don't have enough information about them and how they're being used. Inertia, the reluctance to change of our institutions. We've always been doing it this way, so we should continue doing it this way. The cannibalization of existing credentials. Institutions think that if we go the micro-credential route, it will devalue our certificates and diplomas and degrees. No incentives are provided for faculty. Flexible, just-in-time training is needed, and quite often, if not for the most part, institutions see micro-credentials as something that you add on or it's nice to do, and we don't have to change our processes to go forward with them. Now, with micro-credentials, we have the idea of notional time. That is a credit hour. And what it is the average time to achieve a competency, not the real time, the average time, in class or online or studying. So it could be student, teacher plus lab, plus research study, plus assessment. How much time does that take to complete a course or to master a skill? And we take that idea on average, and we use that as a way of equating our micro-credential to formal credentials in institutions. An international initiative that's been a trailblazer in this has been the Commonwealth of Learning, with transnational qualifications framework for the virtual university of the small states of the Commonwealth. It provides procedures and guidelines how to translate national accreditation for recognition among a wide variety of different countries, different school systems, different institutions. And so I strongly advise people to look at that. You can type in transnational qualifications, you can get it on the internet. Now, the OERU is an initiative of 30 institutions around the world, and they are supporting the idea of micro courses. And so they have a number of micro courses now being taken in many different countries, thousands and tens of thousands of students in I think now it's more than 60 countries. And they are doing this, these 30 institutions are putting the OER courses together because present systems are unsustainable. Present systems are not scalable for universal education. We must find new, more cost-effective learning systems with higher quality. And we believe that OER will form part of this solution. And we'll be able to reach the millions of students who need post-secondary higher education and cannot afford it or cannot even access it in their region. So the idea of the OERU is this: learners access the courses based on open educational resources. We have an academic volunteers and student support system. There's open assessment for participating institutions. The participating institutions grant the credit for courses from the micro courses that have been taken. And then the students, once they reach a certain level of stackable credential, they get a credible degree, diploma or degree. And it works like this. The traditional model is on the left, where you have, it's our students using our faculty, using our courses, and they take our credential. The new model is an OER learner, any learner anywhere, using any faculty or no faculty at all, using any course materials, OER or otherwise. But if they want a degree from Athabasca University, they must take our assessment and get our credential. Or they can go to University of Southern Queensland, or they can go to the Open University in the UK. So there's many different possibilities for students. This is known to us as the anti-MOOC. So what are the lessons learned from so far from the movement toward micro-credentials? Well, we need to align to quality frameworks. We need to build off of existing qualifications. We needed guided training or competencies. Assessment precision is critical, and access must be made available to everyone. And blockchain is something that we haven't touched on today, but many institutions are now instituting, creating blockchain instances for their micro-credentials. And I strongly support institutions in looking into this further and working with blockchain technology to support micro-credentials. So with that, I'd like to say thank you very much. I appreciate your attention. And once again, thank you very much for the invitation to speak with you all. Thank you very much to all of you in China. Goodbye.